Okay, so we're learning Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph at the Mishnah. We're talking about the Shnei Seirim Baloi LeMizrach Hazara. So the Kohen Gadol is going to do the lottery on the east side of the Hazara, the Tzafan HaMizbeach, and he has the Skan B'Yiminoi, he has his vice on the right, Rosh Beizah B'Smailoi, the Shom Shnei Seirim, and that's where on the east side, when he comes in to the Hazara, he has the two goats there. He had a box. He had the girl made out of a certain type of wood. But Ben Gamlo, when Ben Gamlo became Kohen Gadol, he made those girls out of zav. They praised him that he made a donation. Ben Katin, when he was Kohen Gadol, also Yud Beis Dad L'Kiyar Shloher L'Shnai. Beforehand, the Kiyar only had two spouts, so there was only room for two to wash. And then he made 12 for all the Kahanim could wash at the same time, because those 12 Kahanim are going to do the avoda for the carbon tamid. He also made like a pulley, a wheel, for the kiyar, that they can lower it back into overnight into a well. So the water should not become pasabelina, because once it's in the klishares, that water you can't use for the next day. But what he did was he made a pulley and he lowered the water that was in the kiyar all the way down into the well, so it doesn't become pasabelina. And Munvas HaMelech, the king Munvas Hayoisik Kol Yodas HaKelim Sheim Kipurim Shel Zav. When Munvas was the king there, he made the kalim of the Yom Kippur, which were made out of wood. He made the handles out of zav. The Gemara will explain why didn't he make the keli itself of gold? Why only the handles of those keli? Hilna Ima, his mother, Hilna Asa Nafreshes Zav al Pesach Eichel. She made, Rashi says, a menorah on the Pesach HaEchel. Not only did she make that golden menorah which she placed by the door of the Eichel, she also made a plaque of gold. In other words, normally when you write the Parsha Saita on the parchment to put it into the Me'amarim, so they brought a Sefer Torah in, and from the Sefer Torah they made sure they wrote the Parsha of the Sota correctly. So instead of bringing a Sefer Torah, she donated a plaque of gold where the Parsha Sota was written on it, and that's what they copied from the plaque of the golden plaque onto a parchment paper, which they put into the Me'amarim. And then the Mishnah just ends off and says, Nikanar Nasa Nisl Medal Sasos. And it was the Kanar that donated doors to the Beis HaMikdash, and they're called the Shar Niknar. So there were miracles that happened to his doors. Rashi says before Gemara, we'll see that the miracle would happen to those doors, because he was bringing it from Egypt. And they praised him for giving a donation. The Gemara says, since the Mishnah says that the Kohen Gadol brought the Seirim on the north part of the Mizbeach, it's mashmin nechlal the Mizbeach lav b'tzafin kohen. Must be that the Mizbeach is not in the north. There's a machlokis, but from our Mishnah's mashma that the Mizbeach was exactly on the southern part of the Hazara. That means the end of the Mizbeach came up to the north, but it didn't overlap into the north. It started right at the midpoint. So who is that? Mani, Rabbi Lazar ben Rabbi Yossi. When, according to this, our Mishnah that says that the Mizbeach was not in any way on the north part of the Hazara must be Rabbi Lazar ben Rabbi Yossi. The Tanya will learn to Braisa Tzefono L'Fnei Hashem She'it Tzafon Kulei Ponim. When it says that the Mizbeach is Tzefono in front of Hashem, means that the northern part, the side of the Mizbeach, there was nothing there. It was open space. That means the Mizbeach did not overlap on the north side of the Hazara. It was completely on the south side. Divrei Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yossi, which is our Mishnah. But for Haresha, yesterday, when we learned that he put the par, the Kohen Gadol brought his par between the Ulam and the Mizbeach on the west side of the Mizbeach, must be Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon, because it has to be a little bit on the north side. Because if you're doing the Shechita on the side of the Mizbeach must be in the north. The Shechita is done in the north. So how could our Mishnah be Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yossi and the previous Mishnah from yesterday be Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon? Where says no, cooler Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yossi. The previous Mishnah is also. But Tani, don't say that he put the par on the west side of the Mizbeach means Beina Ulam Mizbeach. He put it on the northwest side, which was close to the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach was complete on the south side, so he couldn't place that par on the west. He had to put it a little bit north of the Mizbeach to be Mekayim, the Shechita on the north side. The Mishnah said, "Askan b'yimino v'reish beisav b'smailoi." The Kohen Gadol was surrounded on the right side by his skan. So Rabbi Yehuda says, "Mahalach min rabbi." If somebody walks on the right side of his rabbi, harizeh bor. He's somebody. Rashi says, "I feel b'derech eretz," and he bucking. He's not even a bucking derech eretz. It's not nice. So the Gemara right away asks, but our Mishnah says, "Tanan askan biyaminoi v'reish beis av b'smailoi," that the skan is on the yamin. The skan must have been a talmid of the Kohen Gadol, so how could he stand on the right side? He's a bor. And also, v'aytan, you will learn the brisa, shloisha shayim halchem b'derech. If there are three people walking, with basically two Talmidim and the Rebbe walking on the way, Harav be'emtza, Gadol biyaminoi, that the Talmud that's greater should be on the right side, because mismailoi. But how could the Gadol be biyamino? Harizeh bor. You can't be on the right side. They both should have been on the left. We see by the Malachim shebo Ital Avram, it says there, V'hinei nitzavim alav. They were standing right by Avram. Must be that Michal was be'emtza, Gavriel b'yaminoi, Virafal b'smailoi. They couldn't be on a lineup 1, 2, 3, because then only the first one is Nitzav Alav. But it says they were all right there. Must have been they were on one line across. So we see that Gavriel was on the right. How could Gavriel be on the right of Michal? Harizeh bor. So Targum Rabbi Shmuel bar Papa Kamid Ravada. It means Kadesh Iskasibay Rabbi. When it says that they were on the right side, it doesn't mean they were right there on the right side. They were in the back on the right side, on the back. So the Gemara asks a question. But Vatanya, how could you even be in the back of your Rebbe? Hamahalach and neged Rebbe. If you're on the right side of your Rebbe, harizeh bor. If you walk a Hure Rabbi, if you walk behind your Rebbe, harizeh megasi ruach. So how did they do that? So the answer is easy. The mitzadei, that's today. They weren't directly behind them. They were on the side. Mishnah says the kalpe haisesham. There was a box and bosh neikarolos. So Tana Rabbana. V'nasan Aaron. The pasuk says that Aaron placed al shnei asirim goyrolos. So it's mashma that on each goat he put goralos, a plural, 2 of them. So how does that make sense? So Gemara says Yachal yitin shnayim alzeh v'shnayim alzeh. Did you put 2 goros? Did you write on 2, let's say, pieces of paper on those tavla? Did you make the shel shem la Hashem, 2 of them on one and 2 la Azazel on the other one? That's the way it's mashma.
Yeah, but then you can end up picking the same one for both.
No, you have shame on 2 shames on this one. That means they came both on one. That means that one goes Lashem, and you put 2 Lazazel, which is a good guard. That is even a bigger nace, right? Because you're picking out and putting there, you're putting, and 2 of Lashem come in one behema. But it's mashman a pasuk that you put 2 of them on there. Where it says no, you don't do that. Tamalomar Gorel Echel Lashem, the Gorel Echel Lazazel. Ein kan. L'shem elagarel echad. You'd only a behema could only have 1 sir Lashem, and ve'ein kan lazazel echad. There could only be 1 lazazel. Okay, so you're saying only 1 shem Lashem on one of them, but still it says gorolos plural. So how do you get 2 on each one? So maybe yachal yitin shel shem v'shel zazel azeh. Maybe I'll put Gairol that says Hashem's name and Azazel in one behema, and the other one also will get Shal Shem V'Shal Azazel Azeh. But then the lottery didn't work. That's where you asked the question. So how does that happen? So if you look at Rashi, 2 lines in the bottom, it says Ve'ezeh Shir to Yasel Hashem. In other words, that's the way the Torah says. Put Gairalos, put 2 of them on. That means on each seir you're going to have Lashem and Azazel. Right? And then the Kohen Gadol will decide, I'll take this one. Right? So I might think that's what the pasuk says, because it says Garalos. It says plural, each one. Tamaloim enein, Garal echad, Lashem. Ein kan Lashem el echad. The sir Lashem only goes on 1. And the ein kan Lazazel el echad. But in came Tamaloim Garalos. If each behema seir only gets 1 Garal on it, but the Torah says Garalos, that each one gets gorelos. Gemara says, no, that's only coming to tell you, shavim, that each gorel, each, let's say, piece of paper should be exactly alike. In other words, you shouldn't make one of gold and one of silver. Either both will be gold, right? Which, when it's written Lashem, Lazazel, they'll all be made of gold, or both will make us of silver. Or Echad Gadol, Echad Katan. They have to be the right size. Because if they're not the right size, the Kohen Gadol could cheat when he's sticking his hand in, and he can feel which one's Lashem, he can put that one on. So in other words, they should be all, right? All similar.
What do you mean he's good sheep? I mean, might not be to him, whether this goat or that goat.
I'm just joking.
No, you know what? You never know. Sometimes a person feels this one looks like it. Really, because it's
it's gosh.
Yeah.
But then the whole lottery business falls off, right?
Even though he hasn't got personal gain,
Anyway, but it says also, we said, Garolo shall call davar. You can make the garol out of any material. It's like Mark Pshita, why shouldn't? You could bring in gold, you could bring in silver, you could bring in wood, you can bring maybe a piece of paper. Why do you have to tell us that? Like Tzricha, Lichetanya. Because we learned that Raizel, if Hishamatzinu, b'tzitz. Sha'ashem, Kosav Allah, by the tzitz, where you have Hashem's name written on it, and it has to be V'hu Shel Zav, She'yachal Af Sekein, also this girl that says Se'ir Hashem. So maybe it should be just like the tzitz. Since Hashem's name is written on it, it should be made out of gold. Therefore, Tamalayim garol riba shel zayis. You can make it out of olive wood, riba shel egos, of a nut, and riba shel ashkura, which I had in our Mishnah, which is like a boxwood.
Hashem's the full name is written.
And it says, well, it's similar, right?
Hashem.
On the Sir Hashem, does it say the full name like the tzitz? I'm not. Well, it's mashmanat.
Mashma, yeah, you would think that it's
because in the Havamina, but then right. If it would really be exactly like the tzitz, the Torah wouldn't say that you can make it out of any material. Must be it was just Hashem's name written down, but not the way it was written on the tzitz. I'm not sure. You can look into it. But anyway, Ben Katin, it says in our Mishnah that Ben Katin, when he was the Kohen Gadol, he made a donation. There were only 2 spouts on the kiyar. He made 12. Tana. Why? Kedei sheishneim asar achiv hakahanim, the 12 kahanim asukim betamid that were working in the carbon tamid, they should be mikachim yadeim ragleim v'vasachas. They should all do the kiddush from the kiyar and the mikadosh their hands at one time. There was no lineup. Just like by Shalashudas, right? You have Kanei a lot of sinks there at the line. There's no lineups. Then another brisa says, Tana, Shachris, when they were Mekadesh, Yadayim Raglayim from the Kiyar in the morning, B'milua. When they showed up there, the water was full, right? Nobody used it yet. So therefore, Mekadesh Yadav Raglav Mineh El Yon. Since it was full, they used the top one. But
the top one.
The one that's further, like the water is up, higher, right?
Well, weren't they spouts?
They were spouts, but the water maybe was in a pail or something, right? In the klishares. So that's what it says here. And then the arvis b'yidasai, when the water was lower, then mekadesh yadav raglav min atachton. You're right. The water came through, but it seems like you took the lower one. But from this Bryce's mashma, they didn't have 12 at that point. It seems like they only had 2 before the construction of 12. They only had 2, so they made sure to take the upper one. So maybe the spouts were in parallel to each other, right? Okay. He also made like a wheel, a pulley for the kiyar, and we explained in our Mishnah why, because there was leftover water in the kiyar. If you left that overnight, it would be psolina, right? And they didn't want to. That's not covered to throw out water when it gets puzzle. So what did he do? He made a pulley and he lowered the water that was in the klisharis all the way down to the well. So there was no psolina overnight.
For drinking?
No, you're not drinking. You're washing your hands.
I understand. Well,
so this water had
the water was in a klisharis.
A klisharis. You got a kedusha, right? So since it got a kedusha, you didn't want to spill it out, right? So he made that, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong, because we see before he came along, they didn't have that pulley. It must have been a psolina, right? Or they made sure not to put too much water in there, just to be exact. But he made this muchne, and what is it? Amrabaya Gilgole was a wheel that have mishakale that they lowered into the well. It says that Munvas HaMelech also called Yodas HaKelim. In other words, Munvas HaMelech, all the Kelim of Yom Kippur were made out of wood. He came along, guess what? He made a donation, and he made the handles of the Keli out of gold. For the Gemara, Navdil to do it is off. Why did he only donate enough just for the handles? Make the whole Keli into Zav. Why only the handles? So Gemara answers, Amar Abaya b'yadai sakina. It's talking about the knives. The knives, he made the handles out of gold. Rashi says, why he couldn't make the knife itself out of gold? Why couldn't he make the knife out of gold?
It was cut too well.
It wouldn't cut well. Right? So that's why he only made the handles. But really, the other kalim, maybe when he made a donation, right, he made the whole keli full of all gold. But Meisvei, Fri Gemara, it says, Afu asa kani kalim. Not only did he donate gold to the handles of the knives, he made the base of a keli, the ugne kalim, and also Rashi says, Beis achisason, we held on to the keli, the yadas kalim, and the yadas sakina yoyim kippurim shel zav. So this brisa lists Yadis Sakinin, and at the same time it says Yadis Kalim. Must be they're not the same thing. So the question is, why did he only make the Yadis Kalim? Why didn't he make the whole Kali out of gold? If he made a donation? So Gemara says, Tagmu Abaya, those Yadas Kalim doesn't mean a regular Kali. It means Bekadata the Narga v'chatzina, the handle of these hatchets, of the axe or a sickle. So those he made into the handles into gold, because they itself, you wanted to cut. So the question is, on Yom Kippur in the Beis HaMikdash, what did you need an axe for? So if you think about it, if you ever watch a butcher when he's cutting meat, he doesn't have a little knife. He gives a nice hatchet and get that zetz, right? So that's what they had in the Beis HaMikdash too. It's a cut devarim. It was a geshmak behema. You had to give it a good cut. So the handles were made out of gold. The Mishnah says that Hilna imay asa nafreshes lazav. Hilna, his mother, brought into the Azara, she donated a golden menorah. Where did she place it? The Mishnah said she placed it on the door of the Heichal. Now, to me, I would ask, you want to make a donation, you're putting it in the door, it's blocking the entrance. Where do you put the menorah? On the floor, right? If it's at the door, maybe on the side. But it seems like she put it there, Grace the Knacker. So there's other shitas that it wasn't really a menorah, it was a window that was a stained window. It was a nice window. Or she made a nice chandelier by the door of the Heichal. That didn't block people walking in. But Rashi in our Mishnah says it was a menorah. So the Brisa says, B'shosh.
Hanging menorah.
What's that?
Could have been a hanging menorah also.
That's not that nice, right? Where do you see a hanging menorah from the ceiling?
What do you think they used to use?
Is that what?
Menorah can mean to climb the lamp?
Oh, so maybe Rashi, when he says menorah, means
What's a menorah mean? Menorah
okay.
means a lantern, no?
No, from Rashi, it's mashma. A menorah is a menorah.
Menorah is a lantern. What is a menorah?
Okay, if you want to learn it that way. But other people say that it wasn't like a menorah. Rashi says Tana. So the Brisa says b'shosha chamas ereches, when the sun arose in the morning and it shone and it shined there, nitzutzis yotzim emena, there were beautiful sun rays coming from this menorah. V'hakol yaydin she'gias man krishma. Everybody knew that it's krishma. Rashi says the third narrow line, because mitzvasai of krishma is im anetzachama. So when there was sun, the sun rose, so there was a beautiful sun ray, right? So here it says anetzachama. That's what you have the Indian of Vasikim minyanim, right? Vasikim minyanim are also min anetzachama, but if you ever go to the Vasikim minyan, they don't lay krishma in with the netzachama. They make sure it's Shemon Esrei. So really, the Krishma is coming even earlier than that, right? Okay, but anyway, so that's how they knew it. So for the Gemara Meisvei, it's state that koresh shma shachris imanche mishmar, when somebody's reading Krishma in the morning. And when did he do it? He did it with the Anshe Mishmar. Rashi says Anshe Mishmar are Kahanim she'avoidu mutelos aleim. The Kahanim in the morning, when they're doing the avodah on the carbon tamid, so makdimim lekroisai, they got up very early in the morning to lay Krishma, kaidem hayoim. Why? Because they lay early. If they didn't lay Krishma early in the morning, they would come to work, right? They would check in and start doing the carbon tamid. They would get so involved with the carbon tamid, before they turn around, it's already 3 hours gone. Oh, he's Krishma. So therefore they made sure to come early in the morning to laying the Krishma. But the Anshe Maimit, which are, Rashi says, are Yisrael Aindim B'shlichas Atzibur al Carbon Shenemar Tishmur Lahakriv Li. So there was a mitzvah she Mishamrim V'Aidim Karbanim. So there was a mitzvah for Yisraelim to stand there. It was nice, covered. So they were Ma'achrin. Rashi says Likrois at Kalois Avedis Hatamid. They lay Krishma after the end of the carbon Hatamid. But it must be that the carbon Hatamid ended before the completely 3 hours of the day, because or else it's always Krishma for them. So it's mashma. So what are you asking? Why couldn't the Kohanim do it? Yeah. So what's the pasha? The answer is because the Yisrael were just standing there, mishteit. So they made sure right away. So but a kohen that was busy and doing, and he has to change, he has to go. He doesn't run out of shul so fast, right? So then he might miss it. The Yisrael is running out of shul, right? While you're saying Aleinu, you're already out the door. So they know their cup is they're standing there thinking, I got to do it. But the kohen is so busy, he might miss it out. Okay, but what do you see from here? It says here that if you're laying Krishma with those people, so why are you saying that when the sun hit that menorah, they laying Krishma? They weren't laying Krishma that time. They either doing it early, the Kohanim, or late. So what does it say? When they saw the menorah, they laying Krishma. They didn't do it then. Time for the Gemara to push it. So in other words, the Havamina was that there was no other Yisrael. They're all davening in their steebles, right? So the Gemara answers, no. A lot of people in Yerushalayim came running, like they run to the Kotel to daven. They came running to daven in the Beis Hamikdash. So those people that were not part of the Anshe Maimed, they were there just to be there, right? They laying Krishma when they saw that menorah shining. They knew that was the time.
Could they see where they were standing?
Well, they saw the sun rays. They didn't see the menorah, but they saw the rays, right? Like it says Nitzutzas. So it says there, Afi Asa tablet. Not only did she make this menorah, she also made a golden, the Gemara says that you have to write the Parsha Saita down on a piece of parchment paper and put it into the Me'amar, right? So how did they write it? They used to bring a Sefer Torah in, right? And they open up the Sefer Torah, and then you make sure to copy it exactly what the Sefer Torah is, right? So she made, instead of copying it from the Sefer Torah, she made a donation, a nice plaque that was all nice. The whole parsha was written on it, so they copied it. They didn't have to bring the Sefer Torah in. So for the Gemara, how did they write a whole piece of the Sefer Torah on a plaque? Shamet ninei kaisa megillah latinik l'slami boy. You could write a whole part of the Torah. If you're in Cheder and you want to teach your kids, you can write a whole part of the Sefer Torah. You're not allowed to do that. It's a machlokes actually. So an our Mishnah is mashma that it's like, okay.
What would be the problem?
You can't write. If you look it up, where's the Rashi? If you look up, Rashi says, Shmamino bepluk tehim in Mesechtes Gittin, beperagan izaken. There's a machlokes in Mesechtes Gittin, but you cannot write a whole part of the Torah down, right? There's a certain kedusha on it. So how did they do it on this tavla of Shalzav? So Amar Shlakim Mishum Rabbi Yanai, it's be'alef beis. She really did not write the whole parsha. Rashi says it's oishia shel rosh tevos. She only wrote the first letter of each word, and then they I don't know how much business they had with sotas, but they already knew once the first letter they didn't make a mistake.
It's interesting. The whole sota is everything is low, everything is barley, everything is is totally low. And when you have something that's a hop, I mean, it's interesting. It's totally a syrup with sota.
Yeah, but if you want the king's mother to make a donation, she's not going to give something cheap.
I'm just saying the whole Indian of sota.
She wants to have the big plaque right on top.
Totally busha and everything else. Bayish.
Right, that's why all the years they didn't. But once she came along, right, she liked to make a donation.
It's a chshivas and it's not a chashivas.
Right. Because they were writing things of the Torah on it, so it wasn't al Sota, but it was a part of the Torah. Okay, so now the Gemara asks a question. They wrote Aleph Beis only, Meisvei. It says Kshu Kosev when he wrote the part of the Parsha Sota on the parchment, Roa, he looked at the Tavla, the Kosev Masha Kosev B'Tavla. So it must be that the whole Sefer Torah was there, whatever was in the Torah. And the Gemara says, now, Ema, Aryai v'Kosev Kimah shekasa b'Tavla. Kimah, Rashi says, Lefi, the last line, Lefi Simoni Oisi is. So it was not written completely. But Meisvei have another price that says right out, Shu Kosev, Roa, when he wrote on the parchment, the Parsha Sota, he looked because of Mashikosav b'Tavla, and then the Brisa says meferish Uma kosav b'Tavla im shachav ish oischav im loy shachav im satis im loy satis. So you see, they wrote right out what the Torah said. So Gemara says no, Hasam b'sirugin. They didn't write the whole pasuk out. Rashi says they started b'sirugin im loy shachav acharov. and then Acharav Rosh Teves. They wrote first just the first few words of that pasuk, and then the rest had Rosh Teves. So they did not write the complete part of the Torah. The Mishnah says the Nikanar Nasa Nisin L'Dal Saisav. When he donated these doors, which is the Shar Niknar, there were miracles that happened to these doors. So Tana Rabbana, what was the nis? Ma nisim nasl dal saisav amru kishaholach nikanar lahevi dal saisas melachsandria shel Mitzrayim. When Nikanar went on his buying trip to buy these beautiful doors in Alexandria shel Mitzrayim, so b'chezirasai, when he was transporting them back, and he put it on a boat. Amar olav nachshal shebiyam. There was a great storm l'tavo to sink the ship.
Nachshal is a storm.
The nachshal, Rashi says, is sa'ara.
Tempest.
What?
Tempest, a powerful.
Yes, a powerful hurricane.
Yeah.
Right? So what did they do? So they thought the boat is going to sink because it had a heavy load. These two doors were very heavy. So what did they do? Not the achas man. They took one of these doors that Niknar bought for the Beis Hamikdash. V'tilul yam. They threw it overboard, like the story of Bayona, right? But still, the storm didn't look good. Mizavai, it was still a strong storm. So bikshu lahatlas chavertai. So they were ready to throw over the other door. Amatu. So Nikanar stood up, v'karcha, and he gave it a hug. And he said, if you're throwing this door in, you throw me in with it. So what would a normal sailor do? Throw them both in. But they were ready to do it. On the yacht, right away, when he made that statement, all of a sudden, the yam was very quiet. The other door that they threw overboard, we lost it. Right? So what would a normal person do? You have only one door. What are you going to do with one door to the Beis Hamikdash? Why didn't he turn around and go back to Mitzrayim to get a second door?
Well, it's on the way.
Well, that wasn't his ship, right? They asked Akasha on Menachem Ish Gamzu. Menachem Ish Gamzu had this chest full of gold and silver, right? He woke up in the morning and he saw that it was stolen and put sand. What did he do? He says, Gamzu Taivan, what did he do?
Give it to him.
No, he went to the king. What is that? They asked Akasha, what is he, stupid or something? You say, Gamzul Taiva, don't get upset with Akash Baruch and go home. What are you going with sand? So it's pshat. So I'll tell you after we turn the camera off. No, on camera they'll just hear the question. Right? Okay.
It's a different gear.
Anyway, we'll talk about it afterward. But anyway, it says there that Kimishigil and Amalash al Akli came into port by Akli Haimavas. That says the it says this other door all of a sudden came sprouting, right? Basically, it came out from underneath the ship. It held on. Right. Like Oik Mil Chaboshin. V'yesh Aimrim Berish V'yam Balasai, a fish, this great fish. Swallowed it up, V'kiyasa Li'abasha. I would not touch that door now, right? After it came out of a fish, you're going to go, ooh. I don't know, when it's something in a fish. Shleima says, Kairis Batenu Arazim Ritenu Beruzim. He says these beams, but Al Tikru Beruzim, not from the cedars, El Biryas Yam. These beams that came out of the ocean, of the fish. Because this fish swallowed up and it came. In other words, all the gates in the beginning, that they didn't have enough money, so they made the gates out of wood, out of copper. But once Nishtanu, they became rich, they put it into Liyah Shel Zav. But Chutz, Misharei, Nikanar, even though it was made out of copper, but they never changed it over into gold. It will be a remembrance of the nest that happened. But the reason they didn't change it, it was a very, very shiny copper. And it was a very clear copper, so they didn't have to switch it over. Yashikoah.